You know, the Prime Minister has talked about Russia's flagrant disregard for its veto power. President Zelenskyy wants to strip Russia of its veto power. Never been done before. Could it be done? And is this something that Canada would support and look at?
As the Prime Minister said, yeah, of course we are actively involved and engaged with other countries in looking at how to reform the United Nations. If we could magically wave a wand and get rid of vetoes, we'd be very happy. We don't support vetoes. We think the vetoes have prevented the Security Council from doing some critically important work. And in particular, I think the use of the veto by Russia, the veto was created, the concept of the permanent members of the UN was created in thinking that the permanent members would act as stewards of the world's peace. And we all know that what's happened in Russia and Ukraine is the exact opposite of that. They haven't been stewards of the world's peace. They've taken away from the world's peace. They've directly caused a war. And that has led to some minor changes. The General Assembly has taken on a stronger role. But the dilemma we have is quite simple. It's quite simple to explain. Members of the Security Council have a veto. They also have a veto over the veto. They have a veto over the Constitution, the Charter. Some of you will know this, but I always carry around a copy of the Charter in my pocket, and I use it. It's my dad's copy, actually, and it hasn't been changed since he was here. But the problem is really this, that we need to focus on what we can do. And we need to understand that of course, there are going to be many ideas. And I listened to President Zelenskyy yesterday, and of course, you share his frustration and his anger and his outrage. Any rational person would agree with that. But the fact is that to change the veto system requires the consent of the veto-wielding powers. And our human experience tells us that those with a veto are very unlikely to want to give it up. Oui, oui. Vous allez commencer l'argument? Ça commence, mais...
Vous pensez que le veto, c'est une bonne idée, mais vous ne pensez pas que ça va arriver, c'est ça?
Tout simplement, c'est ce que j'ai dit, c'est qu'on préférait, le Canada a été très clair dans nos travaux, c'est-à-dire qu'en principe, on n'est pas en faveur des vétos. Mais la réalité de la situation, c'est que les pays qui ont un veto vont pas laisser tomber leur veto. C'est très simple. Ça, c'est le problème. Alors, nous, comme Canadiens, nous essayons de travailler, de chercher des solutions pragmatiques aux problèmes. Et c'est ça où nous avons tous nos efforts maintenant, sont de créer un Conseil de sécurité qui est plus grand, où il y a encore d'opportunités pour les membres de participer, mais qu'effectivement, changer les vétos, ça sera difficile, tout simplement.
Je vais vous entendre sur la visite de M. Zelenskyy au Canada demain. À quoi est-ce qu'on peut s'attendre?
Je crois que c'est important pour le président de voir jusqu'à quel point la population du Canada appuie l'Ukraine dans sa bataille. Et je sais bien qu'il est à Ottawa, et je pense qu'il va aller à Toronto aussi. Je crois qu'il verra non seulement dans la communauté ukrainienne au Canada, mais partout dans le pays. Nous avons vu une réponse extraordinaire de la part de la population canadienne face à la situation. Nous avons accepté des mille de réfugiés. On a des familles qui ont fait beaucoup d'efforts pour aider. Il y a tout un groupe qui font beaucoup d'assistance pour l'Ukraine. Et ça va continuer. Et comme j'ai dit souvent, on ne peut pas accepter la défaite d'Ukraine. C'est impossible de croire que ça pourrait arriver pour une simple raison. C'est parce que ça toucherait directement sur la paix internationale et la sécurité internationale. On ne peut pas laisser gagner les Russes. C'est très simple pour moi, c'est pas compliqué.
Can we get that in English, Mr. Rae, just in terms of the importance of Mr. Zelensky's visit to Canada? What do you think it is?
I think it's a great moment. I mean, he's become a hero to a great many people, certainly to me. He's a man of great dedication and great personal courage. I think we all recognize that. it'll be a chance for him to meet the Canadian leaders and to be able to address Parliament and speak to Canadians, but it'll also be a chance for him to meet many people. And I think he'll see a country that will welcome him very, very warmly with a great deal of enthusiasm, and a chance for him to engage really directly with Canadians where we have done a lot to help them, and we need to do more. But we quite willingly and gladly have taken in tens of thousands of refugees. We're going to continue to do everything we can to support the Ukrainian people. Our efforts in terms of aid and assistance have been significant and across all the ranges of things that we can do to help. And I think it's important that he visit us as well as all the other visits he's been making. I'm glad he's coming to Canada.
Can I ask you about a different subject? I understand the Security Council is going to be debating Nagorno-Karabakh today, I think. What role do you see Canada having in, I guess, ensuring that Azerbaijan does not ethnically cleanse the ethnic Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh?
Well, we've been very clear that this dispute between Azerbaijan and Armenia is one that needs to be resolved peacefully. Azerbaijan has started again in military combat in the last few days, choosing to do so at a time when the UN General Assembly is coming together, and this is our first sort of high-level week, and it's a way of flaunting the world, just as the Russians' attack on Kyiv last night was a way of saying to the world, well, you can have Zelenskyy, we'll bomb the crap out of Kiev. I mean, it's not right, it's obscene. I think we have to do everything we can to try to protect the civilian population of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. I think we have to encourage the parties to try to reach a resolution. But it's extremely difficult because of where it is. It's not something where you can say there's an immediate intervention that's possible. And I think that it's also pretty clear that the Russians have abandoned the Armenians, which is, I think, nobody should be surprised by that, but that's clear that's what happened.
So what role do you see for Canada in this? I know it's difficult for us, but I mean, so what?
Not impossible. I mean, with the role we continue to play. I mean, obviously, if there are ways in which there's a ceasefire, there are ways in which the ceasefire will require policing by the United Nations or anything of that kind, then yes, obviously, that's a role we could play. But it's important to realize that both countries would have to agree to that. Azerbaijan would have to agree to it as well as Armenia. So that's the current situation in which we find ourselves.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the fallout from the India announcement in the House of Commons the other day. I'm assuming if there would have been any interactions between our two governments since then, it would have maybe happened here. Are you aware of any interaction between Canadian and Indian diplomats having occurred here?
I can't comment on that. What I do want to say is, again, perhaps you'll forgive me when I say this to you. This is very early days. And I think, when I've noticed many of your questions to the Prime Minister about, why haven't this happened or why hasn't this kind of, he said, this is all taking time. Facts will come out. The facts will emerge. The request for evidence to come out, if a crime has been committed, you don't normally ask the Prime Minister to say, well, where's your evidence? And you say, well, it's a process where this has to come out in the course of the pursuit of justice in Canada. That's how our system works. That's how our system is. That's what we call the rule of law in Canada. So it's important to put that in perspective. And I think the really important thing for all of us is to say a couple of things. The first one is that an attack on a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is quite simply unacceptable. It's an affront to that person and to his family, terrible, but it's also an affront to our common sense of sovereignty and a common sense of borders and boundaries and people understanding their limits to the extension of their interests in other countries. There's limits to that, and that's one thing that we've set up the Royal Commission and so on. And the second thing is to say, look, we're going to continue to work with the government of India. We're going to continue to be friends with all the people of India, and we need to do everything we can to protect the civil rights of all Canadians, including all people of Indian origin in Canada. And it's important for us to do that in a positive way that reinforces the strength of our human ties, which are very deep and very real. And all the other stuff, the political issues and so on as they unfold, it's all going to take a bit of time. And it's important not to overreact to that.
What's your understanding of it? You alluded to international law. What's your understanding of what the law says about a case like this, where India will argue, if we did it, it was in our own defense, right? And how far up the chain, how close to the Prime Minister's office accountability could come?
Well, look, I mean, you're taking me into several castles in the air of speculation. I'd rather not go there. I don't think it's smart for me to do that. I like my job. I'd rather not lose it. I've had work I enjoy. I intend to plan to stay.
Okay, let's try it a little bit of a different way then.
Anybody else?
With the two Michaels in China, Canada really did a concerted effort to try and get allies on side to condemn China and push ideas forward. Should we expect here at the UN that you'll be doing the same thing to try and get allies on side with the Canadian position and try and condemn India for the allegations that have been brought forward?
We're two things. One is, as I said before, and I think let's keep on saying it because I know you get impatient because everyone wants another headline. I just think you've got to take it that there's going to be a process, a judicial process in Canada, and that's going to take some time. And that's inevitably the situation. Of course, Canada is going to be explaining its position with everyone we meet and talk to. That would be only natural, that we would say, how would you feel if your country was in this position? How would you feel if another country decided they could knock off people? And as we discuss this, I think we're going to hear some interesting things about what people have experienced and what they think about it. And as that happens, then we'll continue to talk it through. But of course, we're going to explain our position. When the Prime Minister announced it on Monday, we already were getting questions. Of course, we're answering them to the best of our ability.
It's our understanding, though, that Canada's already explained its position, at least to its closest allies, and there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between what Canada's saying and what a lot of our close allies are saying. Why do you think that? Do you not agree with that?
I actually don't agree with that. I know you said that before in your question. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the assumption of your question. I think everyone's trying to weigh how to go forward. And I say everyone, I mean a number of countries that are dealing with the information. And I think that will all take a bit of time and a lot of consideration as we go forward. But I can tell you, I don't think Canada stands alone in this regard at all. I'm very sure that there will be a great deal of support as time goes on for what it is that we're concerned about and why we're concerned about it and why we think everyone should be concerned about it.
But if there are credible allegations, and we have strong evidence on that, taking the Prime Minister and you at his word, why should the U.S., the U.K., other countries have to wait and consider things to come and support?
Why don't you ask them? I think that would be a place for you to go, probably.
Français sur l'appui que l'on n'entend pas, mais vous dites il est là, il est latent, c'est ça? Les autres pays sont derrière nous.
Écoute, j'ai l'impression, en regardant les nouvelles, en entendant les réponses des pays, que les pays partagent notre préoccupation avec la situation. Ils sont en train de considérer quelle sorte de réponse est-ce qu'ils peuvent avoir. Est-ce que c'est, disons, une diplomatie plus silente ou est-ce qu'on va à haute voix? Ça dépend de temps en temps comment ça arrive. Mais j'ai confiance que la position qui est exprimée par le Premier ministre est une position très responsable. Il a dit, écoute, nous avons l'information que nous pensons est bien crédible et nous le disons publiquement parce que c'est une préoccupation pour nous. Il y a des choses que nous devons faire en répondant à la situation. Mais effectivement, puisque c'est une poursuite criminelle qui est en train d'avoir lieu, ça va prendre un peu de temps et c'est pas facile. Je peux vous dire que je suis certain que beaucoup de monde veut dire encore des choses et parler encore, mais on ne peut pas, parce qu'on doit respecter un processus que nous avons créé. Et le processus que nous avons créé au Canada, c'est pour protéger chacun de vous. Chacun de vous est protégé par le même sens de discipline que nous montrons maintenant en parlant de ce que nous pouvons parler et en ne pas parlant de ce que nous ne pouvons pas parler.
Vous venez de dire que c'est grave ce qui s'est passé en sol canadien, que c'est important de protéger les Canadiens. La riposte et la réponse de l'Inde étaient très raides. Ils ont cessé d'émettre des visas. On ne riposte pas, nous. Pourquoi tout d'un coup, on décide de prendre ça plus doucement?
C'est une question de jugement. Et c'est une question de voir des choses. Il faut regarder non seulement des actions qui sont une réflexe, une réponse rapide. Moi, je préfère de considérer toujours les conséquences de nos actions. Et c'est pourquoi je pense que tout le monde est en train plutôt de réfléchir et de voir comment on peut effectivement répondre à la situation. Et c'est exactement ce que fait le gouvernement du Canada. Merci beaucoup. Thanks, everyone.
Excuse me, Mr. Rae, just very quickly, can I ask you a question about Haiti? Since it's sort of
I would love to have a question about Haiti.
little lighter fare, I guess.
Not really, but I mean, I'm certainly happy to talk about it.
We're now, I think, 3 Ungas deep since the assassination. You've had a perspective on these discussions that have been going on since then. Obviously, things are not improving on the ground in Haiti, but I'm wondering if you can point to any evidence of any progress diplomatically, politically, any sort of evidence that we're getting somewhere here to improve the situation?
I think, I mean, first of all, Canada I chair the advisory committee to the Economic and Social Council. That's formally the group that the Prime Minister was chairing today, and that was the reason for the meeting. If you look at what was said in that meeting, I would say, yes, we are. It's been very difficult in terms of getting agreement and making the progress, but we are getting somewhere. First of all, there's a consensus that security, humanitarian development, and accountability all go together and are going to require an enhanced response from the global community. The Security Council is dealing on the security side with what additional steps will be taken, and that's still underway. There was a lot of good discussion over the last year about what form the assistance to Haiti should take on the security side, and we were very much directly involved in those discussions as Canadians. And I think the view that we put forward, which is it has to be led by the Haitians. It has to support the activities of the institutions of Haiti, in particular their national police. It can't be seen as interfering in Haitian sovereignty. It has to respect sovereignty. I think those views, which we've had for a long time, are now becoming more broadly accepted. And so whatever emerges from the Security Council, we hope will be part of that implementation. But beyond that, a broad consensus that we need to do far more on the development side and on the humanitarian side. And over the last year and a half, I think, to give my boss due credit, working with the region and working with those countries in Africa and elsewhere that are eager to participate and help, we've done that. It's the work that we've done. The CARICOM summit, which we're going to be holding in October, in the middle of October, in Ottawa, I think will be a deepening of that dialogue and that conversation within the region. Because what's happening in Haiti is obviously terrible for the people of Haiti. It's devastating what's taking place. But it's also very dangerous for the security of the whole region. Crime is a problem everywhere. Drug trafficking is a problem everywhere. Human trafficking is a problem everywhere. And we need to understand the importance of reinforcing the security of the whole region. And that's been an approach, again, that we've been pressing for and moving forward on. And I'm quite optimistic that we're going to see a little bit more light and agreement in the next few weeks. Thanks, everybody.